So it's started. Now it's started.
Three speakers are there, right?
Speaker.
हाँ.
Don't speak. This started now. So let's check in the YouTube. Whether it's coming in or not. 이제 그 비도로가 이게 내가 떠오르게 별 떠오르게
Aduna truck sắp ra được thạc là xin đi linh đâu
cái số số number là đi cái số giao
number B 오늘의 영역 계속하기
my number đâu có hai mươi hai
We check the mic, is it?
Yeah, check.
One number three intro.
Cái số hai number giao luôn rồi.
The one the yellow, ma B one project.
오늘 시간 떠오르는 건 언제 사러?
You share the research scholars other places also.
Yeah, we have shared. Yeah.
Share that one.
We share in the Facebook page. Oh yeah.
Start
Put the mic.
Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you present here. I'm Dr. Narmada from the Department of Philosophy, and on behalf of the Department of Philosophy, I would like to welcome all of you here. We have eminent speakers here. We have honorable guests and fellow colleagues and teachers and students. Thank you all for gracing this occasion. And today we inaugurate the fourth Ramashray Memorial Lecture, and this lecture is co-organized by the Department of Philosophy and in collaboration with the Ramashray Foundation. And I would now like to introduce onto the dais firstly our distinguished speaker, Professor Gopal. Sir, could we please have you on stage?
In the middle, yeah.
Madam Indira Roy, the President of the Ramashray Foundation.
Everything crowded.
And Professor Keshav Kumar, Head of the Department of Philosophy, who will also be chairing the session. Thank you all, members on the dais. I now request Arti Griha to introduce the speaker.
Very good afternoon to all of you. It is our great privilege and honor to welcome Professor Gopal to the session today. Professor Gopal has been former professor at Pune University, Delhi University, and Jawaharlal Nehru University. He is a public intellectual, political philosopher, and former editor of the Economic and Political Weekly. He has also been a member of the ICPR. He is the author of two seminal works, The Cracked Mirror, an Indian Debate on Experience and Theory, and Experience, Caste and the Everyday Social, both co-authored by Professor Sundar Sarkar. He has worked on Bhimrao Ambedkar's philosophy of moral realism and political phenomenology of touch, and contributed the article titled On Caste in the International Encyclopedia of Anthropology. Professor Guru's work towards the in-liberation of Dalit discourses, particularly with respect to the introduction of critical theory in the understanding of Dalit identity in India, is unmatched. His writings can be located broadly in the theorizing of the categories of self-respect, recognition, dignity, shame, and humiliation, and asserting a non-instrumentalist view of rationality in explaining matters pertaining to social justice. Once again, it's our privilege to have you in our midst, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would now request Professor Ravi Ranjan to kindly brief us about the foundation, the mission and the vision,
Professor Ranjan.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to fourth Ramashray Memorial Lecture. I have been assigned the duty to introduce the foundation. The foundation was named after Professor Ramashray, who passed away in 2020. Professor Ramashray was associated with CSDS, Center for Study of Developing Societies, for a long time. He was one of the founding directors of CSDS and one of the pioneering Psephology soil election analysis, who introduced the entire idea of election study and state politics at CSDS in 1960s. And for a longer time, he was contributor to EPW and all leading journals, and authored more than 50 books. Most of them were published by Sage Publication, OUP, University of California Press, and others. The basic idea that Ramashray was working through different phases of his intellectual life was to understand society through dialogue. How a dialogue can give you a vantage point to understand the society, and that's why he has started to dialoguing about the society, which is election study, and finally, at the end of his career, he landed with Gandhian way of doing dialogue, talking about violence, modernity, well-being, whether democracy has actually worked or not. So all range of writings, you can go and Google Ramashray and you can find them. So after this life, or after when Ramashray is no more there, the family has decided to establish the Ramashray Foundation to at least inculcate those ideas with whom he has lived his life, and we try to have an intellectual debate even after him, that how we can understand the world and how the changing paradigm, how the dialogue about the knowledge, not only about the knowledge, the politics of knowledge has its own parameters to decide the social conditions and social norms. So these were the very key ideas or key themes on which Ramashray has worked throughout his life, and that's why in his name we have established the foundation. Till yet, this is the fourth lecture, so past three lectures were given by different individuals of their own academic pursuit and their excellence. First lecture was given by Girishwar Mishra, former Vice Chancellor Mahatma Gandhi Antarashtriya Hindi Vishwavidyalaya Wardha, and he spoke about the idea of self and society. And Professor Ramashray has written a book for Sage Publication called Self and Society. So how self, society and knowledge system works was the theme of the first lecture. Second lecture was given by Professor Neera Chandok, former professor of Department of Political Science, on the idea of violence and how violence is problematizing the democracy. Third lecture was given by Professor Manindra Thakur from JNU on politics of knowledge. And the fourth one we are going to have today with Professor Gopal. And I welcome you all, and I request all the students who wanted to see the archive of the work of Professor Ramashray and his ideas, they can contact me, they can write to me, and I of course those ideas and those books and intellectual work will give you some light to how to see, how to understand Indian society, its politics, particularly the state politics and how it has changed in last 60-70 years in independent India. So with this word about the foundation, I welcome you all to the lecture. Thank you very much.
I now invite Manisha Roy to come on stage and felicitate Professor Gopal. I'll come there. Thank you, ma'am. Now I request Professor Keshav Kumar to introduce the theme of today's lecture. Good concepts have an address by Professor Gopal.
Professor Gopal and Indira Roy, and students, faculty, and today, good evening, good afternoon to everybody. Today, we have very esteemed audience, Professor Vishwal, Professor Arindam Chakravarti, and some of the college teachers, first time they are visiting to this kind of lectures. The department is very happy to invite everybody for this Ramashray Memorial Lecture, and exclusively Professor Gopal Guru is an occasion for us to listen to the basic problem or basic questions of the philosophy. Do concepts have an address? Before going to introduce the theme of today's lecture, I would like to speak brief about the Professor Gopal Guru. One line, not one line. It is very much required for the new generation, and you might have gone through some of his writings, but we don't know what is the context and how the moral theories evolved in India. There is a very often we have the question: does the Indian political philosophy exist? Is there any kind of the practice is there? Then we have to, there is no immediate answer, we have to think a lot. Now you know very well, the political philosophy provides the vision of the just and good society. And to have that moral and ideal society, the intellectual have to be critical about the casteist and patriarchal and also oppressive social practices and institutional or governing principles. To question this one, the intellectual have to courage, commitment, and also critical introspection. They have to come out of their prejudice and selfish interest. Exactly due to this, we did find we can find the non-development of the social political philosophy and even the ethical philosophy. At this juncture, we can see there is, of course, the people who try to do Indian political theory, Indian political philosophy, very often carry or also imitated and also reproduce the Western political theories, the way we can find the grand tradition, liberalism, conservatism, communitarianism, or radicalism. They never come beyond that kind of the way looking at understand the real world. And definitely a problem. It is there. The way we try to look at even whatever the generated scholarship about Indian society. There exactly he try to, his intervention sheet is there, Gopal Guru's intervention. The credibility of the scholars, the way they presented, and the kind of the scholarship he generated on this occasion, he wrote a very important piece that is there, how egalitarian are the social sciences in India, who is producing theory, and what kind of problems involved, and who are the people, the research scholars goes on producing. It is very mechanically producing the kind of research results, and there he tried to point it out that one. And he's added the importance of Gopal Guru is that he enriched the Indian social political philosophy by adding the new dimensions, the way they try to look at either the politics or Indian social reality, the way he philosophized. He has taken the clues from the very best practices of the Western political philosophy, either it may be Charles Taylor or Foucault or Bourdieu. But not just it is a very creatively used, not only creatively namesake to provide the theory, and he also tried to look at the purpose is to that the concept also has the power of the emancipation, and that level he tried to engage his studies. Then we can see the way we try to look at the experiences and experience and representation and theory. This very often people used to discuss, and he very much focused on that one. What is the Dalit experience and also the representation. He has written the Kraken Weather with the Sundar Sarukar, and I don't see much. It is a Sundar Sarukar. He had to provide some kind of information or some kind of approach. And however, he tried to look at that as a point for where I can be interviewed, I can start my debate. And there he tried to talk about, he is also, Sundar Sarukar has tried to write about the phenomenology of untouchability. He has written, Gopal Guru has written archaeology of untouchability. There he tried to mention So the sort I try to talk about. I'm also practicing untouchability at a different level. I won't touch the others. Like that, because of religious practices, that is also one kind of untouchability when we talk about. Gopal Guru pointed out that there's a difference between the real untouchability and also the ideal untouchability. That is a very important insight when you try to look at the importance of the experience and also how to make the theory. Then other kind of writings, you know it very well, the power of touch, and also they're talking about most of the people try to reproduce Ambedkar. Of course, people are worshipping Ambedkar, but there's no scholarship about Ambedkar. In this context, he's not just reproducing Ambedkar and also not worshipping. He engaged philosophically the way we can see the moral, the substance of Ambedkar and where we can provide some kind of a political theory, philosophy to understand Indian society. He invested all his energies there, and that level is the way in the context of the rhetoric of untouchable, rhetoric of people used to talk about the rhetoric about Ambedkar, but he tried to engage in Ambedkar in a different level against the appropriation or misleading of Ambedkar and all. Some people try to see the reduce Ambedkar as a pragmatism. There is like talk about Ambedkar as a very transformative potentiality there. That level he tried to recognize. Then his political theory can be continued further. He tried to take the categories such as the way he enriched the political philosophy, freedom, dignity and respect, equality, against the honor, humiliation, prejudice, sentiments and tension. You can see most of his titles also, or books also, he engaged with this kind of the categories where he tried to use it at all. Then after his superannuation from the Jawaharlal Nehru University, he has taken the very serious task, that is the editor of the EPW. You know, EPW is a prestigious journal. And it is also very popular in the context of the liberal times, very difficult to run that kind of journal also. There is different kind of pressures there. But interestingly, I try to look at what kind of writings are there and the way he introduced the kind of very moral language at the popular level, academic level, through the EPW, he tried to introduce. And see to that what is his point is that moral convergence and the moral convergence of real and ideal, the bare minimum or to bear the moral minimum and defending the core concept. He wants to engage that any kind of theory, let us engage again with the core concept, what has to defend it. There may be differences of opinions might be there. And later he tried to look at the from hate to heteronomy, politics with the value of honesty and trust, honor of self-respect, dignity trumps reputation, color of ego or egalitarianism. And this kind of titles, generally you won't find it in the popular kind of the newspaper readings also, or poetic kind of level also, you won't find it. But he's not only poetic and emotional and also much more insightful and academic and all. You know the times of the way we are living in the time of the rhetoric and also populism, and there we try to look for some kind of the decent society, democratic society, and there is also he tries to engage with the any kind of you know it very well, democracy on the slippery slope, rise of pessimistic politics, democracy in search of decency, in search of morally sensitive democracy. These are the titles. These are not only titles, it speaks the voice of the where it is where the mind of the Gopal Guru. And I don't want to go details of this one. One has to read and only then you can enjoy and can utilize this kind of the available resources for our research or to understand Indian society and all. But today specifically he mentioned that I want to speak about the topic that is do concept have an address. There he mentioned somewhere do normative values need an address and concept cross disciplinary boundaries. But there he tried to talk about the for us philosophy very often is not only thinking enterprises, very often engage with the concept. As Deleuze tried to say that one, Deleuze conceived of philosophy as a production of that concept. We are often familiar with the debate of the gap between the theory and practice and also abstract and concrete. And also, then we say the theory evolved from the eminence and where people like Gramsci try to talk about the philosophy of praxis to minimize the gap between the theory and practice. Theory has to be developed from the organic social life. That is the way. Then in this context, I believe that one way Gopal Guru try to locate this problem when theoretizing, the very process of engaging and theoretizing, we have a lot of problems at the subjective level or a lot of academic sometimes is already dictating other way. And there is also concept one which is ours and there is Western versus Indian and then the different levels this kind of influence which is there. There is a contestation about the positions also there. But what we identified the thing in the process of contestation, you are in the process of carrying with the every theories, somewhere we are lost. But you have to retain our indigeneity and also the localized kind of things where the understanding of reality, and it requires one has to keep away from that kind of theories and also we have to engage in different levels. There is a possibility of the enriching our theory and also broaden our social political philosophy, and that level he tried to say that one has to go against this kind of binaries. Binaries has done enough damage for the flourishing of the social political philosophy. There is a fresh thought should be there, and definitely it is a very welcoming idea. Now I would like to, we are eager to listen to Professor Gopal.
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak to all the inspiring faces in the hall. I must thank the foundation, Professor Ramashray Foundation and the Department of Philosophy at the University for hosting my talk this afternoon. It is always a great pleasure to come to hall number 22, DU. About which I have very, very fond memories. Fond, but I would have said tantalizing, but fond is better. Tantalizing memories, not tragic, tantalizing memories. And I see the same love for ideas that is demonstrated today as well. You will agree with me that this has been a wonderful time, and then I think we still have hopes to chase away the clouds of depression. As they say, as Nareshwara of 13th century, the Maharashtra said, radical said, in the Valkyrie tradition. There is a possibility of a Samvad Sukh. Samvad Sukh dialogue, as it was very cardinal to Professor Ramashray. And that's why I think it is so absolutely relevant for us to talk about Professor Ramashray, whom I knew personally when I was a PC pilot fellow in CSBS some 23 years back. And we used to meet regularly and we takes and notes. I had some doubts to be sorted out. I've been a critic of psychology for a very long time right now. And so, but he was so nice, very kind, large-hearted, to sit above the table in CSBS and discuss with me. And he had a very, it's not a good idea to say that he had a very gifted set of scholars as his interlocutors who discussed with him on the issues of Gandhism and most particularly secularism. There used to be debates when Ashish Nandi, Girvase, Prajdeep Bhai and Professor Ramashray, and then Professor T.N. Madan. So there was only one important issue that was actively discussed about secularism. And so he would participate with his own angle, coming from a Gandhian background. So it was really a different time, so to say, different time to have people like Professor Ramashray And I was really fortunate to have spent a rather invested time with him during early 2000. He was a good scholar. He actually good in the sense that he worked on the themes which were relevant to shape the public discourse in this country. And his commitment to build ideas through institutions was also very, very remarkable, and we really require people like him today to build up institutions which are already become vulnerable to all kinds of pressures. So I'm thankful to the foundation and the Department of Philosophy for having made it possible for me to speak to you this afternoon. I have a confession to make. There's a philosophy teacher sitting in the hall whose name is Professor Arindam Chakravarti. When he saw that his title is sitting there in the front. And he said, look here, I have done some 20 pages work on this, which has come as an introduction to a very important book by Professor Dayakrishna, Contract Thinking. And whatever I am going to say, Arindam, luckily I have written it. Otherwise, you could have really charged me as plagiarizing. I'm just so lucky. So, I am not going to claim that I am going to say everything in the world. If I say everything in the world, there is no super samvada. So, I am going to leave some loose ends in my talk, so that all the inspiring faces in the hall can really participate in actually enjoying the sukh, the gratification, not pleasure, the gratification of being in dialogue with each other. So this is a humble invitation to have a discussion on whatever I am going to say, and I am prepared to be rectified, rejected at the same time. So with this introductory, maybe I will say one more thing about your introduction of mine. I thought it was the most precise introduction of mine. Though it was touted, I don't deserve that introduction, but thank you so much for your introduction. And thank you, Keshav, for really reflecting on what I have done so far. And I take it as something which I can carry with me for some time. Because nowadays summarizing somebody's personality in whatever work that person has done has become a rare commodity. So thank you so much for this. So I will read the paper, and whenever you think that it is not doing well or it is off the rails, off the track, you can just catch me. Arindam says, can you really do some kind of a geographical indexing of concepts? So I will start with that. And my answer I won't give immediately, but I will postpone the answer. And let me start. And there are a lot of bearing on philosophy department. Since I am also involved in the philosophy department, I would really, if there is some kind of disruption, I am really very sorry for some people. Some students are really standing. Can you really arrange some chairs? Friends standing, please bear with me, and I can't, it's beyond my control of the department as well. So, can I start with your permission? Yeah. I hope he endured the pain, so to say. But I will try to ward off the pain through what I am discussing. The concept of address with a question mark seeks to suggest that there are multiple and perhaps exclusive viewpoints about the genealogical origin of concepts that trace their epistemic origin to philosophy, theory, and even social science. I am saying even. As we shall see in the following sections, genealogy of concepts, however, may remain undisturbed till such claims to originality face tough competition from the alternative genealogical claims with contra thinking. For example, the claim that we also have our own democracy, we also have our own modernity, brings in dispute the claims to genealogical origin made by its Western protagonists. Further, to counter claims for alternative modernity, one could argue that we had democracy during British time, and which also was as solid as the democracy in the Greek time. If that is true, if we also had similar concept in our part of the world, then why question mark? Why question mark? I think the problem is not resolved. However, the nagging sense that Indian academic community, both here and abroad, has been treated as the mailing address for the conceptual consignment. I am just using some metaphors. Conceptual consignment delivered by the West and issued by the Indian intellectual community and scholars. This is the problem. Why? Even today we say we are actually we are represented by the West, as if we don't have our authentic intellectual voice. And people do talk about it. People from all kinds do talk about it. So this complaint and this concern has been raised by many people with different viewpoints, but the most important name that I must mention, and that has been already cited by many scholars by now, is Professor K.C. Bhattacharya. And I'm sorry, I'm just repeating, it's well known, but I don't know whether it's known, but I'm from my own justification, I must mention this name. So Professor K.C. Bhattacharya, in his seminal essay, Swaraj in Ideas, and it is, I think, 1928, has categorically expressed his concern about the cultural subjugation of Indian scholarship to Western intellectual domination. And I would say KCB looks at intellectual dependence as a cultural subjugation. Why? And he argues that when one's traditional caste, CAST, of ideas and even sentiments are superseded without comparison and competition by a new caste representing an alien culture, that is West, which possesses us like a ghost. Now, you might say whether it was a ghost, whether it is a ghost, or whether it is a spectre. And I am not giving any answer to this. Spectre is better than ghost. You can make a qualitative distinction between the two. I would say, I would like to be a spectre. Yeah, anyway, but that's more arrogant on my part to say that I would like to be a spectre. So, getting possessed by a host of the foreign ideas, Western ideas. I'm just quoting him, just paraphrasing him. Getting possessed by a host of foreign ideas or Western ideas necessarily results in slavery of spirit. Very important. And therefore, he suggests, he makes an appeal, one has to free from this slavery of spirit. But which mind can free you from this slavery? Another question. An unwilling mind or a shadow mind? His words, not mine. Now, our mind today, I would like to ask in the context of what KCB was raising in the 1928, early late 20s, what is the state of our mind? Is it an entangled mind? Entangled in different ways. Or it is a free mind. Or a mind which actually approaches the shadow of the light illuminated by the West. Can I wait for a few minutes? So I was talking about the idea of mind by Prof. and that I'm so much bearing on what our mind has. I mean, so this is one very important concern that is raising. Now, his point is an advice to the West, and which I think others are going to philosophy East and West. That journal is so important that we must really see that journal on a regular basis. That, and see, this is the Sukha Samvada. The KCB is actually inviting the West to take moral initiative in assimilating Indian ideas. It is not the reverse. Now, the question is, do we really have this capacity? Or we are actually reproducing reiteration or repetition of what is already written? And I think I started from here, Political Science Department DU, I made a presentation. We have the habit of shopping in the seconds. And we should give the habit of shopping. Can we really think we really with concepts that are very close? And therefore, I think the advice, the appeal is well taken as part of the Sukha Samvada and the moral process of actually engaging with it and creating dialogue. Of course, Professor Bhikkhu Parekh wrote, do we have Indian political theory? And all that is a very famous, popular essay that Professor Bhikkhu Parekh wrote sometime later. Now, I would like to draw only a small distinction between the post-colonial theorists, about whom you are familiar, I think, and deconstructionists. That on their source, argumentation is of course Edward Said and Derrida. And I must share with you, my student Ragesh is sitting here and listen. Thanks for coming. That I used to hear the language from the students which was not intelligible to me. And every day I was losing self-esteem of my own. Oh my God, I am really not doing well. The language I am not able to understand. What kind of language are they talking about? But the point PCB is alerting to is that, he is bringing this into the dialogue. The deconstructionists and some of them have a complaint about the race, and they have a complaint which is very legitimate complaint that the Western system of discourses have actually sought to indirectly silence the subject of the third world. I'm just caricaturing the argument. It must be a nuanced argument. I'm just caricaturing just to save time. So there is outward, gaze is outward, whereas KCB is essentially inward. And that's why KCB looks so appealing to me, because we are asking questions to yourself, what is your moral responsibility to actually elevate yourself? Which goes very close to what Professor Ramashray and Gandhism was talking. So that's what the only difference that one finds between the two of them. But there are people like Professor Divesh Chakravarti and Professor Chakravarti who have produced a very nuanced position. And the position is that the very overwhelming presence of the modular forms of ideas has actually mesmerized, has overshadowed our own thinking, our own ideas. Our ideas, our concepts are there. Maybe they are in a sedimented form, but they are there. We have to discover them with their own epistemological, methodological truths. Epistemological, methodological truths. So, this modular form is actually asking the subject, the academics from the third world to reproduce whatever is produced there. That's why it is modular. Now we have to think about our own ways of looking at our own reality. So that is very nuanced, and I think that it's a very reasonable position that both of them are taking. So this is by and large the complaint about the Western concern and complaint about the Western knowledge system and how it really dominates us. Okay, now the point that is important for me and for all of us is that can we really take a third position between the two? And I think there is a possibility of taking a third position. Because, and as Anindam has already mentioned in my talk with you in the morning, before you know the talk, because such modular form tends to treat concept as mental images that can be represented in any context without any regard for the epistemic capacity of the local people who can produce concepts that are made the part of the transformative agenda that decides the priority order in concept, depending on the degree of estrangement or acuteness of operation. This is the crucial point. For example, if the caste operation of the lower caste is acute, then one would expect its victims to summon to their critical attention, thinking, and radical action, justice on priority, or social freedom on priority. While the touchables, I won't use the word uppercut, and this is the Ambedkar's word, touchables is the proper category he uses, not upper caste. That's a different thing, we can debate about it. For the touchables, it will be political freedom or equality of the elite people. That would be someone on priority. So, the degree of the priority order is different. You are prioritizing one depending on the acuteness of your affliction, exploitation, discrimination, your experience. So, in one case of the touchables, and I'm adding, and Dixon's work is important on this, even Bhagesh, I'm just quoting them because Adivasis will have to summon to their consideration and attention different concepts. Even the concepts produced by the subaltern, as Nixon has produced or established, are not sufficient, adequate enough to explain and understand the tribal and Adivasi reality. Okay? So in one case you find this is the colonial configuration of power that is actually ordering, actually introducing order in your conceptualization in terms of the touchables. In terms of the touchables, the colonial configuration, the colonial state starting from Said and others, would actually introduce an order in the conceptualization, thereby making political freedom as the top priority. A debate among the political leaders and thinkers is very evidently making it clear. Whereas for the Adivasi, women and the untouchable, it is the local configuration of power that will produce other order in concept. We have to put this the power of the discourse in mind. Thus, concepts, as it were, aren't borrowed images in the mind at that point, but they are the actual and action-oriented capabilities and capacities, in fact, abilities, that are deployed in the transformative struggle of the oppressed. Concepts are not simply in the mind. Concepts are not simply in the mind. They are not even in the textbooks. We have been taught concepts from textbooks. Greek political theory, I was taught Greek political theory. I couldn't make any sense of it then. Now we can always learn and establish the position. Concepts that are not simply in the mind, they are near, they are not in the mind, they are not even in the textbook. They are, but they are not in the textbook, but they are near your experience. Adivasi, women, even minorities, ethnic minorities and religious minorities, these concepts are concepts because they are making people capable of action. And therefore, they are near the experience, not near the mind, not in the mind, not in the text. And that I think, I'm not very sure, I haven't read, I didn't know the last question about Wittgenstein, but it has some bordering bearing on what Wittgenstein is saying. But now I will answer the question on Wittgenstein because I am not a scholar on Wittgenstein. Concepts are not simply in the mind, but they are near your collective experience of what? Of unfreedom, injustice, inequality, indignities, humiliation. Therefore, our discourse have to start with the contra concepts of injustice, inequality, humiliation. You just can't start from the tautological, but tautological will come back. Concept. Now there's one point how to deal with this concept. Therefore, whether the concepts are very do they have address? I can quickly answer that question, but that will repeatedly come in my deliberation. If the concepts are not in the text, not in the mind, perhaps, you may not stretch the concept beyond a point. In imagination, concepts can be stretched. But in terms of experience, they can be stretched, but not beyond a point. And therefore, in conclusion, I might say, and we're talking about the Apoa tradition again, to what extent can you bring beyond the point? Can you really bring the gaze of concept within the reasonable limits of your understanding and your action? That's the point. So you have a limit to your imagination, limits imposed by your own experience and your limits of your action and your politics. So this is about therefore, and this experience is not specific. Women in the West, women in Africa, everywhere. If that is the situation, then can you confidently say that concepts have a specific address? Perhaps you have to give a negative answer to this. And your claim, some of the English studies, I don't know, should I call them English or what? I don't want to name them at the moment. But there are some people who say that if you really want to fight this binary between the West and if you want to fight the dependency syndrome, you must really do a meta theory of the West, theory of the theory. Give them the taste of their own medicine. Produce a theory that will give them a sense of inferiority of their own reality. I think that is too much. I don't think that's possible. So just beside the point. So this is one concern this is one way of looking at one way of answering the question as whether we have a definite geographical address to your concept formation. Now I have just given one small critique of Apoa tradition because they actually bring a kind of a closure onto your causality. Because there is always a possibility of positions becoming permanently unstable. Not this, not that. So there's no end. So there's no limit within which you can bring your action and thinking to a close. Our causality is not about something imaginative, but it's actually stuck up to necessity. We are necessary. Our causality is linked to necessity, and therefore I don't know whether we have option of Apoa theory or not. But if I am interested in bringing closer to my action and thinking, then I will have to really escape this Apoa theory framework. And that's again we can debate. Let me read out what I have to say about this Apoa thing very categorically. The Apoa, the possibility of other argument is always assumed. In one sense, upward tradition avoids seeking closure on the process of argumentation. It is continuous argumentation where the possibilities of closures are put on hold. And this is my word. As the closure can be announced through the formation of a concept, and formation of a concept that in its discursive space can capture the reality. Thus, the upward tradition, there is no possibility of any conceptualization. I would say it is anti-conceptual, there is no possible conceptualization. The concept of causality involves transcendence, or the concept of transcendence involves causality. Particularly causality resulting from the necessity for emancipation. That's the point I was making. So this is one. I have 3 points about the critique of the post-colonial and deconstruction, but I'm just leaving them out. 2 lead questions I would like to answer. What is the time now? Just tell me how many times. There are 2 lead questions in the context of what I am saying about the address question. Should we insist for local or authentic address? I already partially answered this question. I don't think we should really look for it. Secondly, is it fruitful or futile to create a new address? The answer again is no. I'm the same thing. The answer is no. In the light of the deliberation, I'm going to share with you. We also have our own modernity suggests that certain normative concepts in structural sense do not have address. Structural and I would say experiential sense do not have address. These concepts as experience near concepts are naturally present in the life of a human being. They may be present in a very loose form, they may be present in a sedimented form, and therefore they are waiting for their own articulation. As and when provision conditions are available in society, these concepts come to the fore. And you can give examples of many political thinkers who have produced distinct concepts, right, starting from Buddha to Phule to Ambedkar to Gandhi, different concepts. So we are arguing that concepts are naturally present into your very being, very constitution of being. And I would have said in a feminist way, they are already embodied into your being. So that is one way of saying that we really don't require address. This is present everywhere. So we don't really search for a new address. Now, for example, concept of equality. The concept of equality comes. How does it come? This comes only to the handle of comparison. You must have a cognitive ability to compare. And that's why Ambedkar actually is comparing. I'm just taking Ambedkar and Phule. Ambedkar is comparing all the time human being with another human being. And he says at the March Satyagraha, which is going to complete on the 20th March, nearly 100 years, 1927. You are treating us like animals. Your dogs and donkeys can drink water from that tank, not human beings. So this address is to the touchables and also the untouchables. Compare yourself with human beings. So comparison becomes the possible condition through which you can produce the concept of equality, justice, and dignity. Okay? So this is actually, this is the appeal to fight the slavery of spirit. The condition of Mukanaya, the silent subject of history. This is the point which has to be underlined. Now, concepts appear to be therefore tautological, they are everywhere. They come from top or bottom. There is a free transaction between the two levels, the tautological, the word, the universal, and the particular. Concepts appear to be tautological under conditions where they find their reverberation in the context, which are these concepts present in sedimented and not so vocal form. For example, the concept of democracy was present in the Buddhist teaching and practice. It was sedimented until it was brought to the surface of our awareness by, and I am just saying arguably Ambedkar, who gave the concept its own visibility through action. And yet, democracy as a vice by it wasn't very completely welcomed by the vanguard intellectuals. And concepts have the order I have mentioned to you, and I will quote. And there is a similarity between Tocqueville and Tilak. I don't know whether we really taught this Tilak and Tocqueville in our political thought course in political science. There is a similarity between the two. What is the similarity? There is a fear of democracy. Democracy as a concept has to be very closely guarded, regulated, circulated among the elites only. And Tilak is keeping all Adivasi women, Dalit in the waiting room, so to say. You are not yet ready for democracy. Just wait for your turn. And Tocqueville also is equally afraid of this whole thing. He is not against democracy, but it has to be gradually, slowly proliferated, but after profiling the people who are not yet ready. And Professor Sumit Sarkar, Debate Chakravarti, and many others, including Pato, find democracy as something which is very, very enabling. Buddhist, Ambedkar, Phule, all that is listed here. So, Dipesh would say it is actually a space. Democracy opens up a space for the articulation of the vices that are historically repressed. And Sumit Das says, our Indian intellectuals are not too happy to welcome democracy. So if you see the biography of this concept of democracy, you will have a different trajectory of it. But when you teach political theory, we don't really talk about the trajectory of concepts. They have moments of success and failure, enduring. So we don't really talk about it. So concepts, in a way, do not have happened. There is a free exchange between Tocqueville and Tilak. And there are many, Savarkar, there are, in West Bengal, you have so much of give and take, and all that. So I don't want to repeat that story. So tautology arises, and this is important for us, tautology arises from the reiteration of the same word called democracy, democracy, equality, and dignity. For example, paraphrastic practices using different words when the meaning and the essence is exactly the same. In paraphrastic practices, the words are repeated with the same meaning and also essence. For example, the meaning, essence, and the essence of word freedom, the essence of word equality is the same because it actually gives you force to fight against the slavery of slaves. isn't it? So, essence is same of black women, white women, Indian women, black Dalit and American blacks, they also have the same essence of aspirations for transformation. And those who believe in inequality, they also have essence of dominating others for self-preservation. Now these words are repeated with same essence across time and space. Across time and space. For example, the word samya is very prominently used in Arindam Chakravarti and Gurudev Bhattacharya, Mukhopadhyay and Bankim Chandra. Samya is for equality. Hindi Samanta, Marathi Samta. There are different existential, there are different expressions in terms of existence of this essence. But essence is same. Words are different, expressions are different, the form is different, but the content is the same. If that is the case, why do you require new address? Why do you require new address? This is a question that I'm going to. So, can you really replace democracy for something else? There is no alternative. There is no replacement at all. Can you really have substitute for dignity of a human being? No. Justice you may differ, but for these two, freedom, equality and dignity, perhaps, and Maitri for example, you don't have Maitri is on the top in the hierarchy, moral hierarchy of concepts. In the moral hierarchy of concepts, Maitri, Karuna on the top. They are down. So can we have this? If that is the requirement of a human being across the world, do you really require separate address? And it's not a rhetorical answer. Answer is completely no. So you have this case that can really defy the major fight between the East and West. I don't know, maybe emotive fight, maybe a strategical fight, maybe a political fight. I'm not concerned about it, but this is the point. Maybe let me then talk about last point. Why we don't require separate address. The argument surrounding the idea of address, therefore, has a bearing on the question, do we really require separate address? Or do we really require a meta theory? Meta theory, of course, I'm ruling out at the moment. And the answer, of course, is no. And we need to actually produce. You have to go into your own resources, which are there, visible, not so visible, sedimented form. In all the languages, in all the experiences, the experience of the people who are fighting for their own dignity, all in the country, for freedom, they have their own distinct language to express their essence. And after Manirandranath Thakur talked about it last time, politics of knowledge, and he has done a wonderful work on Nyaya, and using Nyaya theory in we were in Madhubani area. Every region has concepts that have universal resonance, isn't it? Struggles for survival, whether Adivasi or women or minors, all struggles for freedom, they have universal resonance and recognition. And recognition, of course, is subject to come. So we have to make a point that concepts actually necessarily appear in their extensive form, they extend in a tautological sense, they repeat themselves in terms of their essence everywhere across the regions, but we have to actually. Now, you might say, what is the politics of this if it is generalized? And I think that the politics is another way of looking at it. And we are going to Foucault. Actually, Bishop, I'm very critical of Foucault and other fellows. So we can talk about it later. However, though Foucault, of course, is important, but I'm not very, not 100% with him. 50% maybe. So I would say concepts have no address. For example, the concept of freedom is the very structure of human being and cannot be annihilated even in the most adverse conditions. And you know, people are fighting, they are going to the gallows until they have urmi, they have aspiration of freedom. Isn't it? And Gandhi is a great example. Knowing the risk there, he is very freedom. So, even in the most adverse conditions, the concept of freedom becomes so important across the time and space, everywhere. Human being can keep the possibility of frustration at bay when freedom is all the time around you. In fact, frustration is the very foundation of the condition of human beings. And this is a problematic statement I'm making. We require humiliation for dignity. But I don't know whether we are talking only about the post facto, not pre-given. When you are situated in the post facto situation, which the post-colonialist and this deconstructionist don't take into consideration, you have to face the conditions of humiliation, exclusion, discrimination, insult, and that becomes unfortunately the very foundation of your freedom to aspire for. So, you have to ultimately become zero as Buddha, as Gandhi would want you to become zero, so that your samvada or suit will end only when there are no possibilities of debates. We don't require debates because questions are resolved finally. But not before you enjoy your freedom through this difficult trajectory. You keep your frustration at bay because you are all the time cherishing your possession of freedom, even though in adverse conditions. And therefore, agency and post-structural language is coming here. Is a very delicate relationship between structure and agency. And the post-structuralists will give more emphasis on language and agency, as if the structures have nothing to do. It's very skewed understanding. They are the same thing together, a structure, agency together. But then the Marxists would for over-determination of structure, there's some kind of a sectarianism. That's why post-colonial theorists and post-structuralists would really enjoy some way in terms of the sectarianism. This is a tough one, in Bombay language is a tough one, the Marxists. So the agency will not allow freedom to vanish. And freedom will have to be necessarily converted, transformed into the universal language of